we're playing Star Wars Galaxies today, which we've been really big into for the past couple of weeks. It's an old MMO, and it's been really fun to play. So it's a nice discussion topic. Plus, I've had like nostalgia on my brain for a while now, and it's just like thinking about that and everything. It's really interesting. But go, support the video and stuff. Drop a like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Josh Strife Hayes is honestly the dude knows his stuff. He's fantastic. Very passionate about gaming too. His worst MMO series is probably one of my favorite series on YouTube right now, so definitely check him out. But for now, let's start watching it.
MMO players fondly reminisce
Okay,
about the day.
hold on, let me.
Many long-time
There we go.
MMO players fondly reminisce about the days gone when MMOs were far less optimized than they are now, when the games were more of a struggle to play. The old guard complains about today's modern MMO conveniences like tutorials, fast travel, quest markers, minimaps, group finders, and the lack of need to communicate. Many say MMOs have lost the social soul they had so long ago and simply aren't as memorable. However, many of the modern advancements...
I think, give me a sec, I want to mention something for that too. I don't know why it automatically goes down 480. So like just the struggle with older MMOs, like Star Wars Galaxies right now, it's it's more difficult to play than compared to like Final Fantasy 14 or Lost Ark or something like that. Which I'm just using those two examples because those are the two most recent MMOs I've been like playing. And besides like WoW Classic, but that's one of these as well. So it is a different ball game for sure.
Blame were added as a result of players directly asking for them. Is it possible to design a game
I also
to be
think that's
worse,
why New
and yet
Worlds
in doing so actually make the player's long-term experience of it better? Can giving the player a less optimized, less immediately fun experience actually result in them remembering the game more fondly, and indeed even recommending it to players precisely because of the fact it is less optimized? The answer is both yes and no. It's a paradox of adversity within game design, and it's one of the main reasons modern MMOs feel the way they do. It's also what Blizzard was trying to get at when they said, you think you do, but you don't. So let's discuss the actual...
One of the most memorable moments in like gaming history. It's like, we want WoW Vanilla. And we're like, you think you do, but you don't. And then it became such a huge hit for them, and they made lots of money. Lou, what's going on? Good afternoon. How are you doing today? Welcome in. We're going to be playing Star Wars Galaxy soon, but I want to watch this, why old MMOs feel better, since we're playing an old MMO. So I figured start off with this and have a little discussion going. But so far with this, I know definitely agree with it. Like, a lot of people like the adversity for MMOs, like the, tougher, more difficult aspects of it. And it's just, it's a whole different field than what MMOs are currently today. Like, even back in playing EverQuest, like, I always remember dying sucked so much because you lost XP, and two, just, like, trying to get back and situated and get back, like, to where your level was just such a hassle. Like, such a huge hassle. Even with Anarchy Online, that was also difficult because I played the hell out of that for a bit. But completely different from nowadays, where if you die, even, I think World of Warcraft started that, where they got rid of the, like losing XP, because I know Final Fantasy 11 still had that too, which I actually want to play that one day. But let's continue before I go on a rant.
Psychology behind it. As usual, a massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channel going.
So
More
many
information
people.
on how you can support at the end.
Impressive that he fits it all on one page.
Begin. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Strife Hayes. I've been making videos about MMORPG design for years, and one thing that I hear repeatedly from both old players who played the game back in the day and new players who are just discovering them is that older MMOs were better. Now, better is a very subjective word. It's hard to define. It's different for everyone.
While I got this going, I want your guys' opinion too. Like, what do you think is better? Do you think the older MMOs are better than the current MMOs that are out? Like the EverQuests, Anarchy Online, Star Wars Galaxies, compared to what's currently out. Like Lost Ark, New World, the current state of WoW, current state of Final Fantasy 14. I could list the rest of them. Whatever ones you play. I'm also curious what other MMOs y'all play too, because I know we really just hang out here and do Galaxies and 14 recently. I also love looking at his backdrop constantly. Like, there's always really, really cool stuff back there. Okay.
But with so many old games still online, like the original EverQuest, or classic versions of modern games being released, like World of Warcraft Classic or old school RuneScape, there
or
must
Star Wars
be
Galaxies.
some element of design, some
crazy.
choice beyond just nostalgia, some reason people keep going back to older designed games. Over the years, I've tried to make videos explaining MMO design, breaking down design
I never played Path of Exile. Any of you guys play Path of Exile?
I've covered the idea of the meta, the chosen
it
one
looks really
narrative
interesting.
Trope, fast travel, endgame, abundance of MMOs themselves, microtransactions, graphics, level scaling, but now I think I've managed to distill it down to the simplest, most base reason.
It's okay.
I'm going to call it
I heard it has
diversity within game design. It's not the catchiest title, I know, but it explains why making something better for the player in the short term.
So is Path of Exile worth it? I've heard that the leveling system is absolutely ridiculous. Like, there's so many different things in there for it. Not even the leveling system, I should say, but like the what the hell do you call it? The things like with your abilities and whatnot. And it's very grindy. From the outside, it seemed to me that old school is better because of modern. Yes. Oh, we didn't even start talking about monetization yet. Yeah, it's rough since most MMOs are free to play. A most prime example for me recently was Lost Ark. Free to play that for honestly a really long time. Probably got to like 100 hours. You can play a lot of that free to play, but it gets to a certain point where it's like it's such a freaking grind, and it's gonna take so long to actually level up from where you are that it's kind of like, hey, you should totally buy this stuff. And it's like, nah, I'm good, dude. I don't have money to spend on game. So it's weird compared to like 14, even WoW, where you don't have to. Well, WoW's super monetized right now, but you don't need it to level up in Classic, or I don't know what the current state of WoW is. Dragonflight looks cool though. But like you can just level up, just do the subscription fee and go from there. But they make so much money with monetization stuff. It sucks. You're not even playing Lost Ark? Why not Phantom? Because of where you are, or I know it was banned. I think it was banned in a few spots because of the monetization stuff for it. I think it was anyway.
Remove its ability to have a long-term impact. It's all to do with the human experience of overcoming adversity. Consider the following.
Definitely.
If something, say a task or a challenge, is immediately easy, it will have a high number of people attempt it and complete it, because it's accessible to a greater number of people. And because a great number of people tend to enjoy easier things, the task will see a relatively high retention rate. You could consider things like sitting on the sofa binge watching a TV show, or ordering a takeaway, getting dressed in whatever was lying on the floor, calling off a planned meeting because it's raining and you don't want to go. It's low effort, but immediate reward. On the opposite end of the spectrum are very hard tasks with very high rates of immediate failure, or a great deal of input effort required. Fewer people will even attempt it, let alone succeed. And because people don't enjoy failure, many will quit if the first few attempts
I just keep getting distracted by all the explosions on the screen.
Leaving the sofa to go to a gym, applying for a much harder job than you've currently got, cooking a full 3-course meal from scratch, dressing up in smart or complex clothes, or attending a meeting if the circumstances are against you and you don't want to go. It could be learning a language or training for a difficult sports event such as a triathlon. It's very high effort with a very delayed reward. The paradox is...
That makes a lot of sense, because, even in normal MMOs, if you get to, like, the end game, then you gotta level up for, like, raid bosses and stuff and kind of get from there. Like, hell, I'm trying for the Necromancer achievement in Final Fantasy XIV. That's a difficult grind to get up there, but I know the reward is gonna be totally worth it and feel amazing once I actually do that solo. So that's one example, but then you also... you're able to burn through earlier dungeons and stuff fairly easily. So it's a balancing act. Okay, so Lost Ark is banned in your country. Oof. Like it's a fun game, but it's definitely pay to win, 100%. You feel like it's the feeling of nostalgia going back, not just in the sense we used to play them. So the clunkiness has a charm. Lack of people back in the actually, yeah. Back in the day, it did feel like there was a lot less toxicity in games, which is weird, because at the same time, there was a lot. If even in MMOs, like, it was there, but for some reason it didn't feel as prominent. It felt like the community was a lot more tight knit. So I definitely get where you're coming from with that. And I think that's because back then social media wasn't really a thing. We didn't even have like Facebook or anything. It was MySpace. So the biggest drama back then was like not being on somebody's top 8 in MySpace. So that didn't really carry over too badly into MMOs and stuff. So it was more so a community-driven game. So the community was more, close. You actually made bonds and made friends through the game. It's very rare nowadays that I meet somebody like in a game and make friends with them. It's mainly through like, Twitch or YouTube that I've been meeting people. It's never really in games anymore, which is it's a strange feeling. It just kind of changed over the time. Exactly. Games were our social media platform. They were really the only things where, or one of the few things where we can just go and, you had your active chat there. You could message people directly, and then just game with them and level up. It was a completely different thing. You hop on Vent with them, have some voice chatting going on. Dude, I miss Vent. Like, I love Discord. It's so easy. Vent was a pain in the ass, but Vent was just really cool. It was nice. All right, we're only like 3 minutes into this. Let me let it play a little bit more.
Is the immediate reward for the low effort input is never as high or as satisfying as the delayed reward for the high input process.
Very true.
The intensity of the reward and the long-term value of it is directly related to the complexity and difficulty to achieve the process. Put simply, if something is easy to do, you'll feel good in the process but not care about the reward in the long term. You likely won't even create a memory of either the process or the reward because it's nothing special. But if something is difficult to do, you'll likely dislike the process of doing it, but then the long-term reward of having done it will have more intrinsic value to you, and the memory you create
stick with you a lot more intensely.
Intense. This is human nature. We want the easy and immediate, but we place much more long-term value on the completion of difficulty. Nobody wants to struggle, but everyone wants the feeling and satisfaction earned from struggling and succeeding.
Yeah, struggling sucks, but like, you gotta put the hard work in, and then you get the outcome from it.
Indeed, the moments of unplanned struggle often become some of our fondest memories. It's very important to understand that the word struggle in this context is not life-changing trauma. It's not extremely negative experiences that you wish you could remove.
Yeah, that's a lot different from
less than optimal,
this
unexpected. It means more difficult than you originally anticipated. It's not extremely damaging, it's challenging within the context of the game. If you go camping with your friends and everything is absolutely fine, you'll likely have an okay trip. But if on the second night it begins to absolutely pour with rain and you discover there's a rip in the tent, you will likely hate it in the moment, but look back on it fondly, laughing with the group as you all reminisce the struggle you overcame. It's
because you were able to be with people getting through a very tough situation, and then you can kind of look back on and laugh. There's also one thing that I just believe in general, like balance. You need to have the dark with the light. You need to have the negative with the good in order to make the good actually good. Like, if it was just constantly good and easy all the time, life would be boring as shit. Like, it'd be horrible. I remember which MMO it was, but there's some game out there where your avatar has been standing around or left it finishing the tutorial for 20 years. Man, they must be pretty bored. I'm curious what MMO that would be, because there's just so many out there.
It's often the moments of struggle that we look back on and smile about. We defeated the enemy and we see value in that. If you ask older MMO players some of their best memories, they'll often tell you about all the adversity they overcame, selling items in the EverQuest tunnel or the Falador Bank, completing quests without guides, phoning friends in real life to organize a raid. There exists in design...
Honestly, that was always the most fun thing to do. When we were trying to like raid or do dungeons in WoW, just trying to get people online for them. That was a blast. Like, nowadays you just do Party Finder and you're right there, but you really had to fight for it back then. And there weren't really that many guides either for, like, there were, but they weren't as like right there in your face as they are nowadays, which was different, especially for like EverQuest and Anarchy Online. I'm just going off the ones that I remember playing the most. I did play a little Phantasy Star Online, too. I like Phantasy Star Online. That was fun.
In a Goldilocks zone of player difficulty, where something is not too easy and not too hard, it's just right.
Goldilocks zone, I like that.
The player
I'm going to use that term.
Them from finishing the game, but when they do finish the game, they're going to feel an immense satisfaction that they have overcome a perfectly balanced challenge.
Actually, I agree with you 100%. Nothing pains you more today than asking a question or telling someone you're struggling with something. They're like, Google it. I hate that response. Absolutely hate that. Like, they're just saying it to be a smartass, and that's it. I hate that. So I agree with you there. It's so annoying. It's like, just tell me, dude. Just have a conversation.
So how does this all relate back to MMORPGs? Well, remember when Blizzard told you think you do, but you don't?
Still one of the funniest moments out there.
You don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't. Remember when you had to like
smart-ass response.
Spam cities and say need a tank, need a tank, need a tank during the Burning Crusade days? You don't remember that, Because now you just push a button that says go to the dungeon.
But we remember that because it was
you don't
fun.
Want to do that.
Like, it was that journey. We all remember that.
It's two elements of human psychology combining. The abundance of choice, meaning we don't stick at one thing when it gets challenging and can easily switch, and the value we gain from overcoming a challenge. Many years ago, there weren't as many MMOs, so you have a relatively captured audience. If you didn't like one game, you could go to another, but you'd very quickly cycle through all possible games. The player base didn't have great variety, and a lot of these MMOs were difficult. The players would face adversity in all games, such as no group finders, meaning you had to talk to people, and creating a group could take a while.
Who can imagine that, actually talking to people in video games?
Or minimaps themselves, or even in your journal, so you had to write down NPCs' names and locations. No market boards or global trading systems, so it was player to player.
I used to have a notepad on my desk where I would just like write notes down for whatever I was playing. I miss those days, man. Like I don't miss, like, it's weird. Again, it goes back to the whole conversation. Like, what is that better than gaming nowadays? And it's like there's something nice and nostalgic about it, but at the same time, it wouldn't be able to exist in modern gaming. Like, it wouldn't be here. It'd be way too difficult for people, which makes sense. And that's why people jump from like one thing to another so quickly, because it's like a little bit easier to get through it. And then they're already done and they're like, okay, let's go on to the next thing. And that's why it is good to have challenges in life. Games have evolved to respect the player's time more. Yes, absolutely. Like, it's like, people my age, I'm 34, and growing up is when, like, for me anyway, the big boom for gaming was like the 90s going into early 2000s. It was just like kicking off. So I think a lot of people my age grew up with that, and now we're all working. Well, most of us. I'm still looking for something. But slowly getting there. I worked for a while. We're good. But it is a lot better to have that extra, respect for your time, because you don't have a lot of time as you get older, which sucks. But I think that also has something to do with it. Like, the generation kind of grew up with games are now making games and like changing the way they function and things like that, which is one of the downsides of pay to win. But that's what it is. Big push, keep playing. Yeah, to keep playing your game. Now it's hard to keep. Yeah, it's good to have people come back to your game. That's why I like Yoshi P's mindset for Final Fantasy 14. He's like, look, between patches and stuff, go play other games. Like, you don't have to stick around for this. And I think that mindset goes a long way with the player base, because it's not just forcing random, for lack of a better term, bullshit into your face like WoW does, and that's why I haven't played retail WoW for years and really have no desire to, unless I get Dragonflight for free or something. Wink, wink, Blizzard. Just, hey. Honestly, I don't even know if I would do that then. They got me with that with Mr. Pandera, and I had such a boring time with Mr. Pandera, so I don't think I would even do that again. Who knows? I'm busy with WoW Classic. All right, I'm going on a tangent, though. But yeah, it's better to be respectful of people's time and be like, hey, go do your thing separately. You don't have to be here all the time or log in daily for stuff. Like, go do your thing, you're set. Even for like Twitch streams and stuff like that, I tell you guys all the time, you don't have to be here. Like, I appreciate being here whenever you can, but life is life. And that goes for everything. It should go even for work, too.
A trade only. No tutorial, meaning you were placed directly into the world and you relied on the community to help you. And many games came with physical CDs and took hours to install, with the process often going wrong.
That was the worst.
Game itself, but it's still part of an adversity.
The worst was getting the disc in, like on midnight release.
Means a difficult or unpleasant situation.
Hours.
And overcoming it is a good feeling. Mm-hmm. Now, the adversity in a game doesn't just need to be the boss design or the gameplay. It can be the meta elements, such as having to play a game without a guide, being unable to switch servers and play with your friends, corpse runs, experience
that was
depth,
such a rough thing.
Cryptic levels of description for both quest guides and item descriptions. Older games had a lot of adversity within them. And as we know, while people like the sense of accomplishment which comes with overcoming adversity, they don't...
That is one thing that I think is amazing no matter what, is being able to play like across servers, and that's something that Blizzard needs to kind of get up to the date with. There should be no reason to have locked-in servers like that.
Always like adversity in the moment. People quit difficult things while they're still in the difficult bit. With older MMOs, this wasn't a major problem for player retention because the players simply didn't have many other places to go.
There was no options.
The end result was a hemmed-in player base with a sparse selection of MMOs, all of which had heavy amounts of adversity, and your choice was overcome it or stop playing. And if you stopped playing, then you simply stopped caring. And if you did overcome it, you felt intense personal pride. But as more MMOs were made and player choice increased, the designers saw both opportunities and issues. If they made the player face too much adversity, the players wouldn't push on because they had no other choice. They would leave because now they did have choice. And this put designers into a strange position.
Yeah, you gotta have balance for it.
They needed to make the systems the players would experience immediately very easy to prevent the players leaving, but in doing so, they were reducing the potential long-term connection the player would have to that system because no one remembers the easy accomplishments. Take the group finder. Without it, players are forced to talk and communicate and connect. Bonds will form, friendships, rivalries. You have to time your gameplay sessions to your guild. The act of forming the group becomes a satisfying
you had to literally
itself.
schedule dungeon
formed,
runs.
It will likely stick together because the process of forming another is difficult. The process of forming the group is the adversity, and the feeling of having formed one is now substantial. But then,
yeah, as soon as Group Finder came out, like nobody really talked to form dungeon parties. You still had some, in your raids, or not your raids, I'm sorry, in your clans and everything. But they really never, there was never a reason to go out of your way to talk to others and form a dungeon party. Like even the FC I'm in for 14 right now will, if we're ever running dungeons or something, we'll just say like, hey, anybody want to join in? And then just hop in Duty Finder and boom, you're already in there. I don't know how Dungeon Finder is in like WoW nowadays, but when it first came out, it was completely different. It kind of took that camaraderie ship out of it, but at the same time, it also made it easier to get through it. And it's just odd. Like it's a weird feeling. You had to sit in Barrens for hours looking for groups for Razorfin, dude. It was ridiculous. Going into trade chat and just like shouting in the cities and everything, like, "Hey, I'm looking for group." Even when I'm playing WoW Classic right now, it's funny because I don't even have other people in the server I'm in, which I'm gonna make a video for. I'm still working on the script for that. It's gonna be interesting, but it's just so different and so difficult back then.
The group finder comes in to remove the adversity of forming the group, and in doing so also removes the feeling of reward of forming it. It's positive for players with very little time, but negative for players who valued the process of making the group. The lack of quest markers on your minimap, or indeed the lack of a detailed map at all, or the lack of fast travel, means you now faced adversity of talking to every NPC, finding a quest, memorizing the world, learning the lay of the land, or becoming friends with a class who could teleport you around.
That's honestly why I still remember to this day, even though I still play it, but certain maps and certain zones in WoW I know like the back of my hand just because I spent so much time there trying to find stuff. Thankfully, though, I do like how maps are more detailed now and have actually like quest markers and stuff, because some of them were difficult to like figure out where exactly to go because my brain's small.
Active exploring
fun,
and progressing was the adversity. That was the challenge. It wasn't easy, but for those who could do it, it was fulfilling. Then the minimaps, teleport spells, fast travel, and icons and quest helpers and auto run came along because players were leaving the game before even finding the quests due to the difficulty of the process. And
that's a perfect example. I get lost in Jabba's Palace all the time, but now I know it like the back of my hand because I got lost in it so many times. Like I go back to Jabba's Palace right now and be like, all right, I'll find my way around. But it was a very difficult place to run around in. But to be fair, I also get lost, walking outside my apartment, so it's different.
It had to be made easier to increase
I'm still excited
retention.
To try New World soon.
Would leave for a game which was doing it. Again, in doing so, you are removing the adversity of learning the land at the expense of the player's long-term connection to the land. Most players simply don't have a very long attention span, or a great deal of patience to deal with failure or time-consuming systems, so game designers needed to remove any and all roadblocks to failure, and this became a double-edged sword because they were now taking the process of adversity and resulting satisfaction and replacing it with a mundane, easy process and no emotional reward. This paradox of adversity can be applied to lots of MMORPG.
It's just a weird balance you gotta find.
There used to be fewer MMOs, so players had less choice, meaning you could make your game more difficult. You could add in more adversity, whether that's the
players are
kind
of stuck there,
quest, or even
no matter
understanding the systems the game is made up of.
I think too another reason why people stuck with certain MMOs back in the day was it was literally, as soon as you started an MMO with your friends, like at that point your friends are there. So it's like you're not going to just get up and leave if it gets more difficult if your friends are still staying around. Like you want to play with your friends at the same time. So it's like it's a weird thing to balance. But just the whole balancing act for this is pretty much what it is. It's just trying, you got to balance out the good parts and the, the rough, or not the good and bad, the easy and the more difficult challenges and stuff. Like, you should have your starting zones and stuff be a bit easier, like the earlier dungeons be easier and simpler, and then just slowly make your way up there. It's why I also like games that have different levels of difficulty for, like, even their earlier dungeons. Like, you can go in the normal one and then do, like, a hard or, like, an extreme version of it. I love stuff like that. The whole making a party, once you do it, you won't want... Yeah, like, people will make a party, and they'll stay with that party. They won't, immediately leave right when something goes wrong, because it's going to take hours to find something else to go in there. So it kind of forces you to, work a bit closer together. Mercadolart, welcome in. Yeah, we'll do Galaxy soon. I'm kind of I wanted to talk about this, why old MMOs feel better, since we're playing Galaxy today. It was just a perfect timing for me to watch it with y'all, and it's a good discussion piece. So we're going through this, and then we'll be hopping in Galaxies soon, which I'm excited for. I really can't wait to get in there. But we're almost done with the video. I know it's taking a while because we're talking so much.
To conquer
that's
them,
the point.
And so be given the reward for conquering them. Ironically now, if something is too difficult, players will leave and go to another MMO because there is so much choice. It is incredibly ironic that the design which sets up satisfaction, adversity, is also the design which drives players away. True. In short,
and then backwards too. If something's too easy, people might leave.
Systems which the player must overcome. It will feel incredibly satisfying when a player advances through it, but it is also far more likely the average player will quit before reaching that satisfaction, because the process is difficult. And if you fill your game with easy systems which remove adversity, it is now much more likely that players will stick around and finish your game, but also they will feel very little connection to it because they never had to overcome adversity.
And then the people that like the challenge will leave too. They're not going to stick around something that's super easy.
But a stronger long-term appreciation of it. An easy experience means more immediate fun, but a weaker long-term appreciation of it. You only need to look at the modern-day video game difficulty mythos to see how we as players
honestly makes me want to go play
overcoming adversity. The Pandaren who leveled to maximum without leaving the starting zone.
That's insane. I remember that.
Taking on the Theatre of Blood while locked entirely inside Mauritania.
God,
Let
that's
me
insane.
Solo her.
Yes.
Killing Melania wearing only a pot on his head.
The newest gaming hero of our time.
No-hit runs of the Soulsborne games, sometimes consecutively. Rendy
no idea how they
could
do that.
Level 3 Fire Cape in old school RuneScape, finishing the Mario games without collecting any coins. We value and respect
I do
those
like stuff
who
like that.
overcome adversity in games, and if that player is us, we end up valuing and respecting
even like speedruns and everything too. Same idea.
So the reason many players have fond memories of older MMOs,
or like achievement or trophy hunting people,
that older games are better, is because they contained a lot more adversity, and playing them demanded you overcome it, giving you as a player that deep sense of satisfaction which comes with doing that. They may not be fun in the moment, but they are infinitely more satisfying to look back on.
Exactly.
Modern-day MMORPGs have removed as much adversity as they can
Dark Souls 2,
because that improves the early to mid-game experience. The irony, of course, is you will retain more players, but you won't be generating those very human, very intense, very memorable experiences that come with overcoming an adverse system. It's why killing a boss after 100 attempts feels better than killing the boss after 1 attempt. You have achieved something difficult.
Most recent thing for that for me is Savage Mode.
Most players won't stick around for 100 attempts. They will declare it too difficult and move on to a different game. Many players ask for easy routes to be added because they focus on the gameplay experience of right now more than the long-term experience and satisfaction gained by conquering a challenge. The skill in games design is to find that Goldilocks zone, where a game is challenging and rewarding while not being frustrating to the point of making a player quit. Older MMOs had much less competition. Players couldn't just leave for another game at a moment's notice, and even if they did, it would be just as difficult.
Like, you weren't going to sit up, and leave WoW if you had a bad day. You weren't going to leave WoW and go, like, I'm going to go play EverQuest 2. And you're going to sit there through WoW and just kind of deal with it because you're not going to leave. Same with the people who are, like, really invested in, EverQuest or Asheron's Call or any of those older MMOs. Like, if they're invested in it, they're just going to stay there instead of starting something new. It's just kind of where you were. It's like you built, like, you built a family in there, basically. And that was your game. That was your home, which is a lot different from nowadays, for sure.
So that Goldilocks zone was much broader for older MMOs. When Blizzard said, "You think you do, but you don't," what they meant was they believed a modern-day MMO player base would quit classic WoW due to the adversity in the game's design, the lack of group finder and the lack of quest giver's location on the minimap, before they were able to reach the satisfying level of WoW Classic and value the experience that overcoming the adversity gave them. Modern Blizzard design seems to be remove all adversity at the expense of all long-term satisfaction.
Yeah, which
so the
makes
next time
no sense
you hear
to me.
an older MMO player saying they want old-style MMOs back, what they likely mean is, while they may not remember the less fun process of playing the game, they miss the end feeling of overcoming adversity that the game gave.
That feeling like you really earned something.
Should modern MMOs be designed with fewer features so players have to push through adversity to gain the satisfaction of overcoming it, or should the adversity be removed to increase early game player retention at the cost of long-term satisfaction?
That's the question, man. It's got to find that good balance.
Self-imposed limitations, such as RuneScape's Iron Man mode, be adopted by the game industry and made available for self-imposed
I can't imagine an Iron Man mode in an MMO.
What's the best design choice here?
I would die way too soon.
Let me know in the comments below. Thank you again for watching. Another massive thank you to the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channel alive. You can support from only £1 a month. Check the video description for links to the Patreon, Twitch, Twitter, and Discord. And as always, have a great day.
I already subbed to him, so let me share the video in chat again. Definitely go give it a watch on your own too. Give it a like. Subscribe to his stuff as well if you aren't already. Make some amazing content. Always love his stuff. Always learn a lot, and also a very good discussion piece. So thank you guys for watching that with me. It was very fun kind of going back with you all too on it.